Dear friend, there are battles in life that end long ago, but in the quiet corners of our hearts, some of them still continue. Not with gunfire or noise, but with silence, regret, and memories that never seem to fade. Have you ever found yourself surrounded by peace, and yet unable to feel it? Have you ever smiled while your soul trembled beneath the surface? It's as if the past, though no longer real, still holds the strings of your present. You try to forget. You move on. And yet, one image, one voice, one night of silence, and it all returns. Not to hurt you, but to be seen. If you've ever felt this weight, this quiet ache that no one else can see, then this story is for you. It is not a story of war. It is a story of what comes after, of what lingers, and of how we can finally make peace, not by forgetting, but by returning, fully, gently, to this very moment. So take a breath, a deep one. Let the mind rest. Let the heart open. And stay with me as we walk together through a story of letting go, a story of a soldier and the silence that healed him. John returned from the battlefields of Vietnam, but the true war, the one that leaves no medals, no fanfare, raged on within him. To the eyes of the world, he was home, he was safe, he was whole. Yet within the silent chambers of his heart, he carried 1,000 unseen wounds. Memories did not fade with time, as people often believe. They lingered, vivid and sharp, the thunder of explosions tearing apart the sky, the final cries of fallen brothers, the helpless gaze of villagers caught in the storm of violence. These images did not simply visit him, they inhabited him, built their dwelling in the fabric of his being. Each night, John awoke drenched in fear, heart racing against enemies that no longer existed except in the vast theater of his mind. And each day, he drifted through the world like a ghost, wearing human skin, surrounded by laughter he could not join, conversations he could not truly enter. The world seemed so light, so unbearably light, while he remained anchored to something dense and sorrowful, something that no one else could see. In his yearning to escape, he did what so many wounded souls attempt. He fled into a labor, losing himself in endless work, believing that if he moved quickly enough, if he kept his hands busy enough, perhaps the past would not find him. When work failed, he sought refuge in a numbing haze of alcohol, reaching for forgetfulness the way a drowning man grasps at driftwood. Yet the more he struggled against his memories, the more tightly they gripped him, for as the Buddha taught, what you resist, persists. Pain that is denied burrows deeper, sorrow that is exiled returns, more insistent than before. John lived not in the present but in the ruins of a world that no longer was. His body moved through the motions of life, but his spirit remained imprisoned in a time that had already passed away. Like a man shackled to a phantom, he dragged the heavy weight of yesterday into every moment of today, and without knowing, he planted seeds of further suffering with every desperate act of forgetting. And yet, in this struggle, John was not alone. He was walking a path many of us tread, the path of clinging, of resisting, of believing that running faster will eventually outpace the ache inside. But the Dharma gently reminds us, no distance traveled can escape a mind unwilling to be still. No forgetting can heal what has not been understood. Peace does not come from flight, but from fearless presence. True healing, as the Buddha revealed, begins the moment we stop running. It begins the moment we sit down, turn toward our pain with the soft eyes of compassion, and say, I see you. I will not abandon you. The past is a dream already gone, only the present breath is real. Only here, only now, can the seeds of peace be planted, if we are willing to tend to them with patience and love. John did not yet know this. He was still a soldier fighting battles long finished, still a man haunted by the smoke of memories he could neither erase nor embrace. But even amidst the ruins, even in the darkest soil, the first seeds of awakening were quietly waiting for him, seeds that, one day, would find the light. In the farthest, dust-laden corner of his home, John kept a small wooden box. Within it lay the relics of a life he had long sought to forget: dog tags worn smooth by time, a crumpled photograph of young faces lost to the ages, a scrap of cloth torn from a uniform faded by sun and sorrow. He guarded these mementos carefully, almost tenderly, yet never once did he dare open the box. It was not the objects themselves that frightened him, it was the storm they carried, the flood of memories that would surge forth, dragging him once more into the chaos he had spent a lifetime trying to escape. Each time his gaze fell upon the box, a knot of fear tightened in his chest, and he would turn away, sealing the past behind a door he had vowed never to open. On a quiet afternoon, while sorting through the forgotten corners of his storage room, John once again encountered the box. The familiar dread stirred within him, urging his eyes elsewhere. But nearby, lying almost hidden under yellowed newspapers and broken tools, something else caught his attention: a thin, tattered book, its spine cracked with age, its cover dusted with time. It seemed almost to call to him, not with sound, but with a silent insistence that he could not ignore. Drawn by a force he could not name, John reached down and lifted the book into his hands. As he brushed the dust away, he recognized the daybook of Buddhist teachings he had once received as a boy, long before the weight of war had closed his heart. Back then, he had flipped through its pages without understanding, dismissing its quiet wisdom in favor of the louder promises of youth and ambition. But now, with hands weathered by grief and a heart softened by suffering, he opened it once more. The pages, brittle and yellowed, seemed almost to breathe as he turned them, and then his eyes landed on the first line. The past is but a dream already gone. The future is a vision not yet born. Peace lies only in the step you take now. The words did not strike him like a revelation. They did not shout or demand. Instead, they settled into him, soft as rain on parched earth, seeping quietly into the cracks he had hidden so well. He read the line again, slower this time, as if his soul itself leaned forward to listen. In that moment, amidst the dust and silence, John felt something shift deep within him, an opening, a loosening of the chains he had so long believed were a part of him. It occurred to him then, not as an idea but as a knowing deeper than thought, that perhaps he had misunderstood the nature of healing all along. He had tried to silence the past, to drown it, to bury it under layers of work and forgetfulness. Yet the past was not his enemy. It was only the refusal to sit with it, to see it without fear, that had kept him in chains. The unopened box beside him no longer seemed the coffin of pain but a testament to a life lived, a life wounded but not beyond redemption. John did not open the box that day. He did not need to. For the true opening, the only one that mattered, had begun within himself. The past was still there, yes, with all its sorrow and blood and loss. But it no longer stood as a wall between him and the present. It became, instead, a quiet river flowing behind him, honored but no longer feared. Holding the book gently in his hands, John closed his eyes and breathed in the dusty air of the storage room, the air of forgotten things, and for the first time in many years, he did not feel lost. He felt found. In the days that followed, John found himself returning again and again to the words in the old book, as if they were a thread guiding him back from a wilderness he had wandered too long. Among its pages, he came upon another teaching, simple yet profound: observe your thoughts as a man watches a river flow by. Do not dive into the river. Do not try to dam it. Simply watch. The idea felt strange at first. All his life, John had fought enemies, fought memories, fought the silent battles within himself. To simply sit, to simply watch, felt like surrender. And yet, something in him, weary from endless struggle, yearned for that surrender more than anything. He cleared a small space by the window where the light fell gently in the afternoons. Sitting cross-legged on an old cushion, he closed his eyes for the first time, not to escape but to stay. The moment his eyelids lowered, the flood surged up, the crack of gunfire, the cries of the wounded, the scent of burning earth. His hands trembled. His breath came shallow. Every part of him screamed to rise, to run, to drown the pain as he had always done. But this time, he remembered a teaching. He did not fight the river. He did not plunge into it. He simply sat and watched. At first, the memories struck him like waves against a fragile boat, each one threatening to capsize him. But slowly, with each breath tethering him to the present, he began to see them differently. They were not demons come to torment him. They were merely passing images, echoes of what had been. They rose and fell, like the ceaseless current of the river. The more he watched, the less they held power over him. Pain still surfaced, but it no longer seized him by the throat. Fear still whispered, but it no longer commanded his obedience. It was not easy. Some days, he could barely last a few minutes before tears blurred his vision and he staggered away from the cushion. Other days, a strange, fragile stillness would come over him, as if the storm were pausing just long enough to let him breathe. John learned not to measure progress by victories or defeats. He learned that true healing was not a war to be won but attending a daily, patient tending of a heart that had been wounded but not broken. Each time he sat, it was as if he were sewing, stitch by stitch, the tattered cloth of his soul. There were many tears, many rough seams, but also moments when the threads held, and something whole, something quietly beautiful, began to take shape. He realized that suffering, like the river, only hurt when he tried to grasp it, to stop its flow, to make it other than what it was. When he allowed it to move naturally, it lost its sting, becoming nothing more than water passing through open hands. Through it all, John began to understand a deeper truth the Buddha had offered with infinite compassion, that the mind is like the sky. The clouds of sorrow, the storms of memory, may pass across it, but the vastness itself remains untouched. And if he could rest in that vastness even for a moment, he could find peace, not by changing the river, but by ceasing to fear its flow. And so, day after day, breath after breath, John sat with himself, sat with his brokenness, sat with his fears, sat with his longings. In doing so, he found that he was not merely surviving his past, he was making peace with it. In the quiet of his own breath, he was weaving himself back together, not as the man he once was, but as the man he was now becoming. As the days turned to weeks, John continued to sit. In silence. In stillness. And in that stillness, something began to stir, not outside, but within. At first it came not as insight, but as discomfort, a vague unease that crept in between breaths, whispering truths he had long avoided. He began to realize that the source of his suffering was not what had happened all those years ago. It was not the war. Not the images etched into memory. Not even the pain of loss. What hurt the most, what had always hurt the most, was his own refusal to forgive, to let go, to allow life to be what it was. Through meditation, John saw clearly, the pain that bled through his heart day after day did not arise from the past itself, but from his clinging to it, his endless replaying of guilt, the anger he nursed toward those who had made decisions that cost lives, the bitterness he had turned inward like a knife. He had carried the weight of responsibility for too long, believing that if he punished himself enough, perhaps he could make it right. But pain, the Buddha taught, does not purify. Only compassion does. He saw how he had become the jailer of his own soul, locking himself away in a cell of regret. But now, sinning with a breath as his only companion, John began to unlock the door not by force, but by understanding. He began the long, tender process of forgiveness. First, he turned his heart toward those who had caused harm, fellow soldiers, commanders, the faceless architects of war. He did not excuse what had been done. He did not erase the sorrow, but he loosened the grip of blame. He let his heart soften, just enough to say, I do not know the weight they carried. I do not know what fear lived in their hearts. May they, too, find peace. Then, turning inward, he faced the hardest task of all, forgiving himself. The choices he had made, the ones he hadn't, the helplessness, the rage, the moments he could never undo, he had buried them deep inside, like landmines waiting to explode. But now, with a steady breath and an open gaze, he met each one. Not to fight, not to justify, but simply to say, I see you. I understand. You suffered, too. He stopped trying to rewrite the story. He let the story be. No longer did he layer it with judgment or shame. He practiced seeing each moment of pain, of fear, of grief as it truly was. Not good, not bad. Just real. Just human. And in doing so, he began to taste a freedom he had never known. The Buddha's words echoed gently in his mind. Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal law. John realized he had been trying to extinguish fire with fire, punishing pain with more pain, fighting memory with resistance. But now, in this new way of seeing, he discovered that the heart does not heal through force. It heals through gentleness. Through kindness offered first to oneself, then to all beings, even those we once called enemies. There was no dramatic release, no moment of sudden enlightenment, but in the quiet repetition of breath, the subtle shift in perception, the softening of a clenched soul, John was learning to live again. Not as the man he thought he should have been, not in the shadow of the man he used to be, but as the man who was here, now, present, and finally, deeply, at peace. The years that followed unfolded not in grand gestures, but in the quiet grace of simple days. John chose a life stripped of unnecessary noise, settling in his small house nestled among trees that whispered their ancient songs to the wind. Each morning, as the sun climbed gently over the hills, he would sit beneath a great oak that stood like a silent guardian outside his door. Eyes closed, hands resting lightly on his knees, he breathed in the crisp air, feeling the subtle rise and fall of his chest, the soft pulse of life moving through him. There, beneath the sheltering branches, he no longer waged war against the past. He no longer fought the old battles of guilt and sorrow. The memories still arose from time to time, shadows crossing the face of the mind, but they no longer stirred turmoil within him. They were acknowledged with a simple bow of awareness, then allowed to drift away like leaves on a stream. In the vastness of his being, there was no longer a battlefield, only a wide, open sky. John's heart, once a fortress of regret, had softened into a field of gratitude. He gave thanks not only for the sweetness he had known, but also for the bitter trials that had shaped him, for even suffering had been a teacher, stern, relentless, but necessary. Without it, he realized, he would not have come to taste the true flavor of peace. As seasons turned and his own hair silvered like the frost on autumn mornings, John found himself quietly drawn to those who still carried the old wounds he once knew so intimately. Other veterans, weighed down by memories too heavy for words, came to him not for answers, not for doctrines, but simply to sit in his presence. They found no judgment there, no easy prescriptions, no hollow reassurances. Only a man who had once been broken, who had walked through his own fire, and who now carried in his silence the calm of one who has truly understood. John helped not through speeches or sermons, but by embodying a truth deeper than language, that healing is possible. That peace is not found by erasing the past, but by embracing it with a compassion so vast that nothing is excluded. In his gaze, in his stillness, in the way he listened without rushing to fix, others began to glimpse the possibility that they, too, could lay down their burdens. And so, without fanfare, John became a gardener of hearts. Each breath he took was a seed of kindness. Each moment of listening was a seed of acceptance. Each silent prayer for the suffering of others was a seed of boundless love. The man who once returned from war carrying the ruins of his soul had become a living testament to the Buddha's timeless truth. As rain falls equally on the just and the unjust, so too does compassion fall upon all beings without distinction. In the end, John did not erase his past. He did not defeat it. He embraced it, held it tenderly, and through that embrace, he was set free. And from the freedom he found, countless others, too, began to find their way home. The past is not a chain that binds us, not if we know how to release it with wisdom and compassion. Like a rain that has already fallen, like a golden leaf that has drifted gently to the ground, what has passed is not something we must carry forever. It is something we can bow to, with gratitude, and then let go. Letting go is not forgetting. Letting go is allowing the heart to step lightly toward the light. It is the quiet opening where peace begins to grow, not in some distant future, but here, in the stillness of now. Only the present truly belongs to us. Only when we loosen our grip on yesterday can we reach out and take the hand of peace. So I wish for you, as you walk your own path home to yourself, that you may find the vast and quiet stillness that John came to know. A place where no more wars need to be fought. Where nothing has to be erased, only seen, accepted, and gently set down. And in that space, may you hear nothing but the soft wind through the trees, and the fragrance of compassion, rising quietly through your soul.